You are now tuned into Daily Discussions with Dena. Join in the discussion right here, Monday through Friday at 12:30 p.m.
Welcome to your daily discussions with Dena. As always, you are invited to subscribe and leave your comment on this discussion. Now, there has been lots of media headlines and coverage in regards to 93-year-old Mrs. Josephine Wright of South Carolina. This feisty mother of 16 children, 40 grandchildren, and 54 great grandchildren, and 16 great great grandchildren. My, she's blessed. Ms. Wright has lived at her home on Hilton Head Island in South Carolina for the past 30 years. The land has been in her family since the Civil War. She and her husband retired from working in New York City and both lived in this home. Mr. Wright transitioned in 1998 and she has continued to live on this property. She has been quoted as saying in an article with USA Today that it has always been a sanctuary for her. That is, up until last year, when Bailey Point Investment started doing work around and even on her property, cutting down trees and kicking up dust that covered her car and her house. Since then, Mrs. Wright has been fighting a battle to keep her home from developers. Bailey Point Investment Group. They own the land on every side of Mrs. Wright's 1.8-acre property. The company is said to have acquired it in 2014 and is developing a 147 home subdivision in her area. Now, Mrs. Wright has said that the company only offered her $39,000 to buy her property, and that was a few years back. Are you serious? $39,000? To make matters worse, Bailey Point Investment Group actually sued the Hilton Head Island citizen over her home in February of this year, arguing that she was being a nuisance, that she was delaying their development plans, contributing to lowering the property value, and that her screen porch, shed, and satellite dish was encroaching on their company's property. Now, around the same time, she also reported that there were strange things that started happening around her, including flattened tires and a snake hanging in a window. Now, the nerve of this company.
Low Country Report, a 93-year-old Hilton Head woman whose family has ties to the Civil War generation says developers are trying to force her to sell her land, starting with what she calls a frivolous lawsuit. As WSAV's Andrew Davis tells us, now the community is backing her fight.
This porch has been part of Josephine Wright's family and her home for more than 30 years, but developers now say it's part of their property, even though it's 22 feet from the road that they're building on, and they filed a lawsuit to try to take it from her.
I've been pretty much of a fighter all my life.
And even at 93, this grandmother to 40, great-grandmother to 50, and great-great-grandmother to 16 more says she's ready to fight for her family's past and future.
It puzzled me at first, but then it got me angry.
Angry at the lawsuit filed against her by Bailey Point Investment. They're the group who are developing the land right behind her home on Jonesville Road, property that has belonged to her family since the Civil War. The 147-unit plan has been approved and is well on its way, but Bailey Point says Wright is blocking their progress. They filed a lawsuit saying parts of her home are on their property, and they have the paperwork to prove it. In fact, they're asking for damages. Wright already paid to move a shed and a satellite dish, but the developers say her porch is still on land they own.
See, I'm at least, 12 feet away from the borderline, which is right there.
Actually, neighbors helping her say it's 22 feet away from the road that Bailey Point built. Josephine says this isn't about a porch. The developers made offers to buy her land, and she claims when she turned them down, they started harassing her.
And I don't want to say anything that can be used against me, but I think they're unscrupulous and greedy. And they want nothing but all the property they can get their hands on.
Kelly LeBlanc is part of the newly formed Jonesville Preservation Society. She and her fellow neighbors, many of whom are related and original islanders, have garnered support from Hilton Head residents and town leaders, all to make sure the island's past here and everywhere will be protected in the future.
We can't change the zoning. The town is looking very carefully at all of the approvals that they're going through. So the town is really working with us in terms of it's got to be to the letter of the law.
In the meantime, Wright has a lawyer of her own now and is ready to fight for her property and her history.
And unfortunately, they do this kind of crap all the time. But in response, Mrs. Wright procured a civil rights attorney and countersued the company. At this point, the situation gained the attention of the press, and I can still recall seeing and hearing about this on the world news as well as on social media. She was trying to gain support and bring attention to it as well, as she should. And in an effort to assist her in this battle, they started GoFundMe. Her granddaughter, Sharice Graves, she started a GoFundMe in May to try and assist her grandmother in her fight against these developers. With this GoFundMe, there were people that you could aid just by donating, and it would allow her to get a lawyer or whatever she needed to fight this battle. She had some well-known contributors, including Kyrie Irving, who donated $40,000. Snoop Dogg donated $10,000. And there were other celebrities that posted their support as well. And the people, everyday people that donated, that was fantastic. Now, her granddaughter updated the GoFundMe a while ago and reported that in September, a tree fell on Mrs. Wright's home while she was out of the house, and she said it created 2 holes in her roof. She later noted that on her GoFundMe that Mr. Irving, who had already donated, made a second donation following the roof damage. Now we need to give him a big thank you, a big shout out for contributing, and all of those who prayed for her and wished her the best and offered their assistance any way they could to try to help her be victorious in her fight against this Goliath company, attempting to take her land that has been passed down from family to family. Now, in one of her TV interviews, she said, "I've pretty much been a fighter all my life." That's a woman after my own heart. It is pretty much the sentiment for many of us, especially those down here in the South, not because we want to, but often because we have to or have had to. But it was Mrs. Wright national news interview that caught the attention of actor, director, producer Tyler Perry. And after seeing and hearing her response, he responded to her by saying, "Well, that makes 2 of us, Miss Wright." He wrote, "Please tell where to show up and what you need to help you fight." That's what I'm talking about. No if, no ands, and no buts about it. Now, TMZ reports that Mr. Perry is reportedly paying for a brand new house to be constructed, one to replace Mrs. Wright's current home construction crews are expected to break ground on in the coming weeks. Now, her granddaughter has said to have confirmed this news on her GoFundMe page, where she conveyed her appreciation and gratefulness to everyone, Mr. Perry, Mr. Kyrie, and all that donated and stood in solidarity with her grandmother to assist them in their endeavor. I have to say, people like to criticize Tyler Perry, and I believe everyone is entitled to have their opinion on anyone. Nobody is excluded from this. It's yours to have. But I have read several times so many generous and amazing things that Tyler Perry has done for many in the community, in society. I mean, people he doesn't know, people he has never met. And I can recall down here in Georgia, he went to several Walmart stores and he just paid out layaways. If you were lucky enough to have a layaway at the Walmart that he chose, or the several that he chose, he just paid it all out. Everything you had on it was given to you free of charge. Then I recall that during COVID, and people were in desperate need of food and basic things, basic needs, he was actually assisting people. I can recall seeing on TV a long line of cars at his studio where he was helping them. He was giving them basic supplies and food. And maybe no one else recalls this, but I do. Then one time, me and my husband saw a story about this black couple who was stranded in Mexico. They could not pay for their medical bills, so the country would not allow them to leave. And me and my husband were talking, what can we do to assist these people, or who might we possibly call, or what can be done to assist them? And we both agreed if anyone was going to aid and assist them or be able to help them, it would be Tyler Perry. And just like Superman, he actually assisted them and brought these people home back to the United States. And I assume he paid what was owed, but he was able to get them back home. Now, I don't know the people or the details, but I was happy for them, and it was amazing to see that we were correct. So I wrote this sappy post on my Facebook thanking him. And no, I don't know him or the people involved. I just felt it was commendable and admirable. I wanted to say thank you because this is sometimes a very cruel and unkind, wicked society where people just look at people and see them as less than. But he had no responsibility in this. He could have simply ignored it, but he didn't. And I thought it was absolutely exemplary, a deed that he done. I even hear he built some housing to assist single mothers and others that are in need as well. And these are just the things that we know of and aware of that he has done to assist perfect strangers. And I think it is because of his experience in life and what he has learned and what he has lived that has made him have compassion for others that are in need. Now, something many people today have just abandoned because of circumstances and experiences in their own lives as well. Even when I hear of something he has said or done that makes the news, and I don't have a problem respectfully agreeing or disagreeing with him or anyone else that may have an opinion about something or whatever the issue or topic of conversation may be, I always have to reflect on that person's actions and perhaps their deeds. And in this case, I have to give Tyler Perry his props once again. When Mrs. Wright's story first poured and popped up on my feed, I just knew somehow when I saw and I read it that Tyler Perry would get involved, not knowing how or what it is that he would do. I just knew that he would assist. I don't know why. I just felt it. So when I saw the headline from USA Today that read, Tyler Perry building new home for 93-year-old South Carolina woman fighting developers, Josephine Wright is getting a new home after months-long fight against developers on Hilton Head Island, thanks to Tyler Perry. I told my husband I knew it. And I am sure Mrs. Wright is ever grateful to everyone who donated to her, who supported her in her cause, and prayed for her to have victory in this matter. It's not about praising any one person per se, but it is about giving credit where credit is due. And I'm sure she's thankful to everybody. And thanks again to Mr. Tyler Perry for assisting her Miss Josephine Wright is 93 years old. And I think he is proving once again that it matters how we treat and assist those that are considered to be the least among us. Now, tell me what you think about this discussion. Be sure to subscribe and leave me your comment. And join me for my next daily discussion with Dena. Ta-ta!
This concludes the daily discussions with Dena. Join us Monday through Friday at 12:30 p.m. Like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment.